Hey, friend. This is episode one of the Side Eye Podcast. And so I'm super excited, and I'm super excited for you to be joining me on this journey. Now, go ahead and grab you a snack, get you some good to eat, and settle in with me. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Mika. I'm your girl with the facts, that homegirl, that you call when you want to know something about any and everything. She like one of them ABC agencies. Yes, that's me. Okay. I am really nosy as hell. And so I made a podcast out of it. Now, while true crime is my passion, I am, again, very nosy. So sometimes we going to end up somewhere else. And friend, that is okay. But today, in this first episode, we are right at the heart of it. The exact reason I built this whole thing. And now, one thing before we get into it, okay? True crime is sensitive, friend. Some stories more than others, and this one right here gets into some real heavy things. It's going to be talking about a rape, a murder, a man who lost his life. So if you got little ears nearby, or if you just not having the day for it, then friend, take care of yourself first. I will be here when you're ready. Go check out episode number 2 because, again, special day, I launched 2 episodes, okay? But for the friends that are staying with me, let me tell you who this is about. This is about a guy named Tommy Lee Walker. He was 19 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. And when I tell you what they did to Tommy, friend, it was wrong. Just flat out wrong. Okay. And so in 2010, an investigative journalist started to dig into this, and it took until 2016 for them to really start investigating it, friend. And it is now 2026, and Tommy has been exonerated, and he deserves to be. So you got your snack? You comfortable? All right, come right on in. Okay, friend. Now let me take you back to Dallas, Texas, September of 1953, and I need you to feel the air in the city because it matters. All summer long, Dallas was turned all the way up, friend. It was a rumor going around about a Negro prowler. Word was some black man was around white neighborhoods at night, peeping in windows, exposing himself like a peeper Tom, scaring these women half to death, okay? And every time the police showed up, he was just gone, okay? No evidence, no nothing, just the stories. But that ain't matter, friend. The whole city was on edge and looking for somebody black to blame. Now that's the Dallas we walking into. So on September 30th, a woman named Venice Lorraine Parker, she was 31 years old, a store clerk at a dime store, a mother with a 4-year-old little boy at home, and her husband, he had been in the hospital with tuberculosis. So it was just her friend holding it down, counting every penny, okay? Now, this particular night, she made a decision to walk to a bus stop that was further away from her job instead of just getting on the bus right outside of her job. Why, you ask, friend? She was trying to save 5 cents, friend. She took this long ride home because it was going to save her 5 cents because she was taking care of her son and her husband was in the hospital. Now, she walked towards the lights of Love Field Airport over an overpass to a bus stop in a lonelier spot on a street named Lemon Avenue. And somewhere on that walk, somebody attacked her friend. She was raped, she was stabbed, her throat was cut, like for her jugular was severed, okay? But Venice Parker did not give up easy. Hurt as bad as she was, she crawled on her hands and knees out to the middle of the road. And it was just after 9 o'clock at night. There was a man that was driving home from his job at the airport. He was an airline clerk, and his headlights caught something in the road, crawling, dress torn, soaked in blood. So he pulled over and he ran to her and asked her, like, lady, what happened? And Venice, with everything she got left in her, got 3 words out. I was stabbed. And then that was it. And that was the last anybody heard her say anything clear. Okay. Now this was roughly 9:10. She got off work about 8:45, 9 o'clock. Okay. So by the time he got to her, it's about 9:10. He got her in the car and raced her to the airport because it was closer than the hospital, but he also worked there. And they got to the airport roughly about 9:13-ish, right? And so when they arrived, friend, they said the people that came outside running said that she was making gurgling noises, choking on her own blood, and it was pooling around her. They said her body was convulsing. She was kicking the back window because her body was convulsing so hard. And so, again, Clarkson pulled up to this terminal asking for help. And these people came running and they all had the same thing to say. And I'm saying it again because I need you to understand. They said she was slumped over, bleeding out in that back seat, saying nothing. Now, obviously, she did not survive that night and she lost her life. And so we're going to sit with that for a second because that's a whole person. That is somebody's mother. This little boy had to grow up with almost no memories of her, and she deserved the truth. She deserved for whoever really did this to be the one to answer for it. But friend, here's the thing that didn't add up, and hold on to it because it comes back around to it. Now, everybody said they done found her choking, okay, and she couldn't speak when she got to them. But the police arrived on the scene. This one lonely officer, Officer J.W. Gallagher, and he arrived roughly 4 to 8 minutes after they arrived. Okay, roughly 9:13 is when they got there again. Now, when Officer J.W. Gallagher, excuse me, got there, he said that he walked up to this car and leaned into the window and said this lady raised her head up, coughed, and said to him clear as day, "A Negro took me under the bridge and cut my throat." Okay, put a pin in that because we're going to come back to that. Okay. Now, see, friend, across town, Tommy was with his longtime girlfriend, Mary Louise. And Mary Louise was pregnant a whole 9 months. Okay. Now, this man, Tommy, was over the moon about becoming a father and a daddy. Okay. And people who knew him said he had been after Mary Louise for months to get married and make it official. And she kept telling him to wait until the baby came because she wanted to do it right. Now, on the night of September 30th, 1953, that same night that Venice Parker was attacked clear across town, friend, Mary Louise was in labor. And so that's where Tommy was, friend. He wasn't at no bus stop on Lemon Avenue. He was exactly where he needed to be and where he wanted to be, okay? Pacing, probably in a waiting room and in the early hours of the morning because the very next day, he has a baby, Edward Lee Smith, and a whole new life coming into the world at the same time another was being taken across town, friend. That is his alibi. And it's not no flimsy, I was at home by myself, trust me kind of alibi. No. So while the state was trying to say he was 3 miles away, cutting his woman's throat and severing her jugular, Tommy Lee was actually watching his baby be born. And at least 10 people can attest to that fact. And I do mean 10 people. His daddy, because he had to borrow $5 from him to get Mary Louise an ambulance. And then Mary Louise herself, because she's having a baby, her mother, and his sister, the ambulance driver, the doctors, the nurses, okay? There were people that could confirm this. Now, the issue is, friend, all of these people had to go up against the confession of a police officer that coerced out of him this confession, okay? And two strangers, a man and a woman, who claimed they saw a colored man in the dark from way across the road, then turned around months later and picked Tommy out of a lineup in the dark. Make it make sense, okay? From a distance across a color line, months after the fact, believe me, we're going to get into that too. So sit with me on this one first, okay? The same hours the state swears up and down that Tommy was killing Venice Parker, people literally watched him become a father. Make it make sense. So here's what I need you to understand, friend. After Venice Parker was murdered, months went by. 4 to be exact, okay? And Dallas ain't had nobody, no suspect in any kind of way, no evidence, nothing. But the city still wanted and needed somebody because remember, friend, that Negro Prowler had been slipping right through their fingers all summer long, escaping them, literally, okay? So, you know what they did, friend? They went and rounded up all the black men, not suspects, friend, just black men. And I need you to hear how Dallas County themselves described in their own official statement. They wrote, quote, based on little more than the color of their skin, hundreds of black men were rounded up, detained, and questioned, and ultimately released. Hundreds, friend. And that's not me being dramatic. And the man running this whole manhunt was a man named Captain J. Will Fritz. He was the head of homicide. And now I'm not about to call him, actually, I am. I'm about to call him a couple things, but I'm not about to call him anything these receipts didn't already call him, okay? Now, that same 2026 statement names him in writing as, quote, white Klansman and Dallas Police Department Homicide Bureau Captain J. Will Fritz. Friend, a Klansman running the homicide department. I mean, what can we really expect though, right? Now, friend, listen to how this Klansman talked about the hunt, okay? He went on record with the Dallas newspaper in 1953 and said, I quote, "We still have about 100 more Negroes to check on. We'll investigate each one as we have time to get to him." Now I got a feeling he wanted to say a whole lot of something uglier than Negroes, friend. But he was in a newspaper and he was the head of the homicide. So in print, he had to clean it up a little bit and keep it a little bit respectable. And that's the trick, ain't it? In daylight, he was Captain Fritz, fine, upstanding officer, but a Klansman in the hood behind the badge at night. That man got to hide twice, once under the hood and once behind the badge. Same damn time, okay? But anyways, I digress. So he said 100 more, like he was just reading names off a list, like he was just checking off his grocery list or something, picking up some milk. Check on 100 Negroes. Like, that's just the kind of man that was in charge of finding out who murdered Venice Parker. And he did a piss poor job at that. Now, one of the names that finally came up on his little list was Tommy Lee Walker, that 19-year-old I was telling you about. No record, brand new father with a baby at home he was trying to take care of. Now, friend, this is how they got him. And I need you to hold on to how flimsy this was because there was no evidence, none. It was a robbery, a little non-violent property thing months later in January 1954 that had absolutely nothing to do with Tommy, okay? And it was at a gas station that Tommy used to work at. Yes, friend, used to, past tense. He ain't worked there no more. But the police pulled the old employees list looking for somebody to talk to, and Tommy's name just so happened to be on that list. That's the whole reason they were even looking in his direction. So now the DA's 2026 statement put it like this. Quote, a vague tip received months after Ms. Parker's murder placed 19-year-old Tommy Lee Walker at the forefront of the Dallas Police Department's investigation. A vague tip about a robbery about a job he had already left. Now, how out of the whole list did they land on our boy Tommy? Make it make sense, okay? So, listen, friend, they went to his house and they arrested him, but they didn't arrest him for Venice Parker's murder. They arrested him for this robbery, booked him, fingerprinted him. There's a whole photo of it sitting in the Dallas Public Library archives to this day. Now, while he was sitting there waiting to get asked about a robbery he didn't do and had no knowledge of, he saw something. Friend, he watched a Dallas police officer beat another black man right in front of him. And remember, friend, we in the deep Jim Crow era, okay? That's his own sworn testimony from 1955 in the appellate record. It said slapped a black prisoner around with a gun while Tommy just sat there. No lawyer, friend. He didn't have no lawyer, no phone, no Mary Louise, no baby, no daddy, just watching and learning real quick what kind of place he was in and probably scared as shit, okay? Then after that, after he done watched all of that, this man came out to get him. That Klansman, the same one, took him into a room and closed the door. Hours, friend, hours. And what Fritz wanted was simple. He wanted Tommy to confess, and Tommy testified. It's right there in the appellate record that Fritz told him if he didn't confess, he was going to call in the two men from upstairs. You know, them same two men that Tommy just watched beat the out of somebody? Them, friend. Okay. So that was his option, either confess or get the shit beat out of him. His only two options. And they lied to him about some evidence they didn't have, friend. So what did Tommy do? He confessed. He didn't have no choice, he felt like, okay? Not once though. Friend, he confessed twice. Now, why twice, you ask? Because the first time, he didn't even know the details to the murder. I mean, how could he? He wasn't even there. So these mofos went back and tried to make the story add up, okay? And Dallas County admitted in 2026 themselves, quote, the first statement included details that could not have been and were not possible. Once realized by officials, another statement from Walker was obtained. This second statement conveniently reconciled those impossibilities, end quote. So picture it, friend. They got this first confession and they read it and it didn't match the crime. I'm talking details all up in their room because at this point, Tommy is just making it up because he don't know what the fuck they talking about. So instead of going, oh, our bad, maybe this boy really is innocent, they went the complete other way. They wrote him a whole statement. The right details, this kind. I'm talking the kind only somebody who studied the case file would know. And then they slid it across the table like, here, son, sign this one instead. Now, they ain't say them exact words, friend, but you know that's exactly what happened. That ain't a confession, friend. That's a script and they wrote it for him. Then gonna make him sign that. That is crazy, okay? Now, Listen, they even tried to corner him into saying he raped this girl. So that's where Tommy had drew the line, flat out absolutely refused to say that he raped this lady. But that Klansman could not get that signature out of him, no matter how hard he pushed. And the second he could, Tommy took the whole thing back. I mean, recanted the whole story, said, nah, I ain't do none of this. I don't even know the story y'all telling. I was across town having a baby. Said it was threatened out of him. Now, here go the part that's going to make you sit all the way up, friend, because there was no physical evidence. None. Nothing tying Tommy Lee Walker to the Venice Parker but two pieces of paper. The one with the details all up and wrong, and the one the police wrote themselves that just happened to have every detail right. And remember, this whole thing started off with the lie of that officer claiming that Venice said something she couldn't have possibly have said from the jump. They just needed somebody to pin this Negro Prowler shit on and this Venice Parker murder on. So from get-go, it was obvious they didn't know how to do their job or tell a story, so they built one, okay? Dallas County in 2026 admitted that they got a confession through coercion and they named exactly what kind. In writing, the DA's office identified the tactics used on Tommy Lee Walker, quote, minimization, threat of death penalty, and a false evidence ploy, end quote. So basically, they was telling him, oh, this wasn't that bad, just go ahead and admit it. And then it turned into confess or you gonna get beat, and then it turned into, oh, we got you there because we got evidence on the scene. Now, all three of those as a teenager in a room with a Klansman in a police station where black men get beat. And for Tommy Lee, who had never been in trouble or in a police station, possibly because he had never been in trouble. So I'm making that assumption, right? It is scary. I could only imagine. The only thing they ever had on him, they made up. Make it make sense. So after all that, friend, after the back room, the Klansmen, after Tommy signed them two confessions and then took it all back and recanted and said none of this is true, Tommy did something that's gonna break your little heart, friend. He asked to talk to the district attorney because see, Tommy believed at 19 years old that somewhere up the chain that there was somebody who would be able to help him with real power, okay? And look at this and be able to fix it. He believed in the system. He thought if I could just get to the DA and tell him the truth, this will get straightened out. So he asked, and in walked Henry Wade. And Tommy told this man everything, okay? Poured it all out about Mary Louise, the baby coming, the whole night. He named the people, friends, 9, 10 of them, okay? Who could put him clear across town when Venice was murdered. He laid the truth at this man's feet and asked him for help. And do you know what Henry Wade did with all that, friend? He told Tommy he believed him, told Tommy he would help him, said he just needed Tommy to do one little thing first, and that was sign one more clean copy of that confession just for his files, so he could have it on record while he looked into it, quote unquote. And he promised, friend, he promised that he would not ask for the electric chair. So Tommy signed. He was exhausted, scared, cut off from everybody he loved, okay? Believing a powerful man just told him the truth, and he signed. And Henry Wade folded that piece of paper up, put it in his file, thanked him, and walked out that room. And the next thing Henry Wade did was charge Tommy Lee Walker with capital murder for the murder and rape of Venice Parker. Built the whole case on the confession they tricked him out of signing, and then he stood in front of a jury and asked for the death penalty, the exact thing he looked that man in the face and told him that he was not going to do. Now keep Henry Wade right there in your mind, friend, because this man was on some nefarious shit, and we're going to come all the way back to it before the night is over, okay? So now they're taking Tommy to trial, friend, and I need you to sit in the courtroom with me because everything about it was foul. I mean, we already knew that from the jump, but it gets worse. March 22nd, 1954, less than 7 weeks after they arrested Tommy for capital case, Texas versus Tommy Lee Walker, Dallas County Criminal District Court number 2, cause number 5213HI. That's the record. And prosecuting it, none other than the district attorney himself, Henry Wade. Okay. The same man who tricked that confession out of Tommy Lee Walker. Wade decided that he was going to handle this one personally. Friend, and the jury, 12 men, all white. I'm not reaching, friend, because we know that's exactly how that office handpicked juries. Henry Wade's DA office had a policy in writing, a training manual that went out to the Dallas prosecutors. And here's the line that surfaced years later in the United States Supreme Court case. Quote, do not take Jews, Negroes, Dagos, Mexicans, or a member of any minority race on a jury, no matter how rich or well educated, end quote. Now, that manual got written a few years after Tommy's trial, but if it ain't inventing nothing, friend, it just put on paper what that office had been doing already for years, okay? Keeping Black folks off juries on purpose as a rule. And when the Supreme Court finally looked at that office, the justice said it was, quote, suffused with bias, end quote. That means it was running all up and through there just rampant, okay? Now, that is the office that handed Tommy Lee Walker 12 white men as a jury of his quote unquote peers. And the current DA admitted in 2026, quote, the U.S. Constitution affords individuals the right to a jury of your peers, yet Mr. Walker's jury consisted of 12 white men, end quote. Now, on Tommy's side, you have three lawyers, three Black lawyers, friend. In 1954 Dallas, standing up to Henry Wade, and I need you to know their names, okay? First up, we have W.J. Durham, a top NAACP attorney in all of Texas, a man who had argued cases before the United States Supreme Court. Next, J.L. Turner Jr., who would go on to found the Black Bar Association of Dallas, and the youngest of them, Kenneth Hobart, who decades later actually sat down with the journalist Mary Mapes and told this whole story. And her 2016 piece is the investigation that broke this case back open and got them looking again 10 years later. Okay. Three Black lawyers against Henry Wade in front of 12 white men. That was the matchup, friend. And his lawyers brought the receipts. Okay. Baby, they put the alibi witnesses all up and on that stand, each of them. Mary Louise, her mother, the next door neighbor, the Beard brothers, Tommy's sister, the co-worker who drove him home from the gas station that night, the ambulance driver who carried him and Mary Louise to the hospital when she was in labor, one after another under oath, swearing that this man was clear across town when Venice was murdered, okay? They called the sky caps from Love Field who told that jury plain and simple, Venice couldn't speak when she got there. They called the medical expert who testified that her jugular was cut. Remember, friend, she was spurting blood out her neck, and it was physically impossible for her to say what that officer claimed she said. And then they put Tommy on the stand, and he told them everything about the baby, the robbery, the Klansmen. He talked about how he watched that man get beat, the threats, the two confessions, refusing to sign about the rape, Wade's whole trick, all of it. And them 12 white men just sat there, baby, and they listened, but they were not actively listening, okay? Because Hobart, the young lawyer, looking back on that jury years later, told Mary Mapes, quote, jurors simply would not believe Black witnesses over the word of Henry Wade, end quote. He said the whole verdict was like, quote, conjugating a verb, okay? Meaning it was decided before anybody had even walked in that room, friend, before a single mouth had opened, before one witness was heard. The structure of that room had already wrote it down, guilty. Now I'm side-eyeing every one of these mofos, okay? Henry Wade, the Klansman, Captain Fritz, and Officer J.W. Gallagher, okay? But Henry Wade, friend, was not satisfied just being a prosecutor. No, sir. No ham, no fur. Okay. Henry Wade got his ass up on that stand. Yeah, friend, you heard me say it. He walked from the prosecutor's table over to the witness stand, swore on Jesus's Bible, and testified that Tommy Lee Walker was guilty. His own personal belief. And then he got up off that witness stand, walked right back to his prosecution table, and kept on prosecuting the case. Make it make sense. You can't. But in Dallas, 2026's quote, the district attorney said, quote, District Attorney Henry Wade became witness to this offense when he himself took the stand on rebuttal and improperly testified to his personal belief of Mr. Walker's guilt. After his testimony, Wade continued in his role as lead prosecutor in the case, okay? Improperly testified? Come on now. And their friend, while he was up there, he kept trying to imply that Tommy failed a polygraph, a lie detector. Now, a polygraph wasn't admissible in Texas courtrooms in 1954, and to be honest, they still not today. So, as a prosecutor, Wade already knew this. Now, he didn't come right out and say it. He just kept trying to imply it so the jury heard it anyway. And Dallas County called that out in 2026 as well, saying, state, the state allowed misleading presentations of evidence through its improper questioning of Tommy Lee Walker, including but not limited to repeatedly implying that Mr. Walker failed a polygraph examination, an investigative tool very well known to be inadmissible. So let me get this all the way straight for you, friend. He lied, okay, to get this confession. He prosecuted the case himself, and then he climbed his marshmallow ass up on that witness stand in front of the jury and vouched for the guilt himself and snuck in some inadmissible evidence in front of the jury by just implying it, and nobody stopped him. Again, make that make sense. So, friend, now we get to these closing arguments, and Henry Wade gets back up in front of these people, them 12 white men on the jury, to put a bow on it. Okay. Now, remember, this is the same man that looked Tommy in the face in that room and promised him, if you sign, I won't ask for the chair. Okay. Put a pin in it. Now, in his closing, while he's talking to the jury, he turns and talks to Walker, and he says, quote, I'd be glad to walk the last mile with you, Walker, and I'd be glad to pull the switch on you. End quote. Pull the switch on you? The same man who promised he wouldn't even ask for the chair, now standing up telling the jury and telling Walker to his face that he gonna walk this boy down to that electric chair and flip the switch himself. You gotta be a bold and special kind of mother to look a man in the face in a courtroom and tell him you want to turn his lights off personally. But I gotta remember what time we was in. And remember, friend, I told you Henry Wade was on some nefarious shit. It's real clear what his background and his beliefs was. But anyways, I digress. We gonna make it make sense, okay? Now, the defense, them three black jurors, Durham, Turner, and Hobart, they got up and closed too, friend. And Hobart said later that he already knew. He watched the jury the whole trial and he knew before he opened his mouth that they were not listening. They were not listening. But he stood up and fought for Tommy anyway, because that's what you do, okay? That was somebody's baby at that table. That was somebody's father. He had a child. He had a girlfriend that he wanted to marry. Now, while all of this was going on, let me tell you what was happening outside, friend. Per Hobart, backed up by the Dallas Express, the black paper at the time, there were at least 1,000 black Dallasites gathered outside the courtroom, at least 1,000, standing, waiting, and praying for this boy. And circling around them was the Dallas police, okay? Now, they said their job was to make sure all of them praying people weren't going to do more than pray, okay? And Hobart said that it was the most powerful show of state power he ever saw in his life. So then the jury went to deliberate, friend. And here's the part that like, just turns my stomach. Because, friend, Durham, Turner, and Hobart had been in that trial for over a week, okay? They walked across the street to the little restaurant to wait it out. Because it's a capital murder case. It's supposed to take some time. But given the times we were in, who were we to expect anything different? Friend, they sat down, ordered their food, and before their food was done even cooking, the bailiff walked in and told them that the jury was back. That is less than an hour, friend. 12 white men took a man's life in their hands. Had like 9 or 10 people who swore he was clear across town and they have nothing to do with this. A medical examiner who said the whole thing was impossible. Tommy's own testimony. And they handed it back in less than an hour. Man, them lawyers ain't even get their food. So the foreman stands up and the verdict comes down. Quote, guilty of murder with malice. Punishment, death. End quote. 12 white men, less than an hour. Death? Now, back then, friend, a death verdict in a courtroom was the death sentence. There was no separate phase like how they do now. They just set his date in the same hour, okay? Now, there's a photograph of that day sitting in the Dallas Public Library archives, and I need you to see what Tommy Walker looked like in that case, because we've been saying his name a whole lot, but I want you to picture him, friend. He was small, 5'3", and 118 pounds, friend, a skinny little thing. If the wind blew too hard one day, he was going to be liable to blow away with it. In that photo, this baby is sitting right in the middle of the frame. Light colored shirt, a sheriff deputy on one side of him, his lawyer, Mr. Durham, on the other, and his hand pressed up against his own face like he couldn't believe it. And behind him was a whole crowd of white men in suits and hats. Okay. And Tommy Walker, besides his lawyer, was the only black face in that picture. So the judge asked him, like they do, if he had anything he wanted to say before the sentence was passed. And this little 19-year-old stood up, and here's what he said. Exact words right here in the court records. He said, quote, "I feel that I've been tricked out of my life," end quote. 11 words, friend. He ain't beg, he ain't cry, he ain't curse nobody out. Now, me, I'm not gonna lie, I probably would have been in there cursing every last one of them motherfuckers out, but not Tommy. He just stood there calm and told them the God's honest truth. They tricked him. Like they really tricked him, took his life right from him. So, friend, they sentenced Tommy Walker to death. And right after March 1954, they moved him out of Dallas County Jail down to the state penitentiary in Huntsville to the building they call the Walls Unit, to the cell block they keep the men waiting to die. He walked in there at just 19 years old with a brand new baby boy at home, and the girl he loved left both of them behind. He would be 21 when they kill him. 2 years in a concrete box and on death row in 1954 seemed like it would be hot and lonely and small and just not a place you would want to be, right? 2 birthdays he could have spent with his son, 2 Christmases he should have had with Mary Louise just gone. And the whole time, friend, not once did this man stop professing his innocence, okay? To anybody who would listen, the staff, the visitors, the prison psychiatrists they sent to evaluate him, and actually, per the records that the 2026 team pulled, the doctor wrote down that Tommy told him, quote, "The law knew I was innocent and was framing me," end quote. Now sit with that. 2 years in a box and you still telling anybody that's going to listen that the law knew? And now his lawyers did not give up. Durham and Turner took it to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. That is the highest criminal court in the state. And on February 9th, that court affirmed it. Conviction and death sentence upheld. That's the Walker versus State 286 SW2D144 opinion. They then filed for a rehearing, friend, and it was denied June 1st, 1955. And they took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And on January 9th, 1956, the Supreme Court even declined to hear it. Now, at every level, friend, trial court, state appellates court, Supreme Court of the United States, every one of them looked at this case and let it stand. And 16 days after that last door closed, January 25th, 1956, they brought Tommy back to Dallas, stood him in front of a judge named Henry King, who read him his death warrant and set the date. And that judge asked him the same as before, did he have anything to say? And friend, he said it again. He said them same words 2 years later. "I feel that I have been tricked out of my life." He said it at his sentencing, and he said it again when they set the date, and not one soul from the Dallas County courtroom all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States believed him enough to stop it. Now, meanwhile, in between, while Mary Louise was at home in Dallas with the baby, Edward Lee, who's about 2 at this point, and she had to go and get him a suit to be buried in. She had to order while he was still alive, friend. Like, that to me is crazy, okay? So, May 11th, 1956, the night before, they gave Tommy his last meal. The prison chaplain came to sit with him and they moved him out to a smaller cell, okay? Happens to be the one right next to the execution chamber. And just after midnight, May 12th, 1956, they walked Tommy Lee Walker into that chamber at the Walls Unit in Huntsville, sat him down to the electric chair. The warden read the order out loud, and then they asked him, like they do, did he have any final words? And Tommy Lee Walker, at 21 years old, looked people in the eye, standing there, to watch him die. He said, "I'm innocent." 4 minutes later, 12:04 in the morning, May 12th, 1956, the state of Texas did not execute Tommy Lee Walker. Friend, they murdered him. Then pretty much just sent his body back to Dallas for Mary Louise to bury him in the suit that she had ordered for him while he was still breathing. And they closed the file and they let it sit for 70 years, knowing good and damn well they was some lying racists. And that's me putting it nicely, okay? So 3 days after they killed him, friend, Dallas buried Tommy Lee Walker May  15th, 1956 at St. John's Baptist Church. Reverend E.C. Estelle said the words over him, and his family laid that baby to rest, okay, in the suit that Mary Louise had ordered while he was still breathing. And then silence for decades. Tommy Lee was just another black man killed and forgotten about. His son grew up a Smith, not a Walker, because Texas didn't leave them time to get married, okay? And the world moved on like that man never existed until 2013 when a Dallas investigative journalist named Mary Mapes came across the case and could not let it go. She spent 3 years on it. She sat down with Edward Lee Smith, Tommy's son. She tracked down Kenneth Holbert, the young defense lawyer, old man by then. She read the appellate opinion, the trial record, the prison records, and in 2016, she published it all in D Magazine. And friend, she titled it exactly what it was, word for word. Quote, "When Henry Wade executed an innocent man," end quote. So in 2016, the truth is out there in print for everybody and anybody to read. And you know how long it took Dallas County to do something about it, friend? 10 more additional years, okay? 10 years Edward Lee Smith waited after the truth was public. And finally, in 2024, the Dallas DA's Conviction Integrity Unit opened a real investigation up. They teamed up with the Innocence Project and the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project at Northeastern, worked it over a year. And here's the receipt that sealed it, okay? Attorney General with that Northeastern Project named Alex Stein went to the library at SMU to a collection called the Earl Cabell Papers, manuscript 16, box 1, folder 41, and he pulled out a roster. This roster was dated around 1923, friend, titled Police Department Klansmen, okay? A list of Dallas police officers who were also in the KKK. Now, remember, friend, I already told you Fritz was a Klansman. This is just a receipt, and his name is right here on that 1923 list, okay? Fritz joined the police department in 1921, so by the time he had Tommy in that back room in 1954, this man had been wearing the Dallas badge for over 30 years, and this was proof sitting in a box at SMU the whole time, just waiting for somebody to walk in and ask. So on January 21st, 2026, the Dallas County Commissioners Court held a special meeting to vote declaring Tommy Lee Walker innocent. And Edward Lee Smith is 72 years old now, okay? And he is a son who never got to know his daddy. But he stood up at that podium and he said, quote, "I am 72 years old and I still miss my daddy," end quote. 72 and missing a daddy he never got to meet, and that is unfortunate. But then something happened in that room, friend. Joseph Parker was there. That's Venice Parker's son. Let's not forget about her, right? The baby whose mother was murdered at Love Field in 1953. This man had spent his whole life believing Texas had caught and killed the man who murdered his mother, and it was a lie the entire time, okay? Because when Dallas framed Tommy Lee Walker, they didn't just take Tommy's life, okay? They let the real man, whoever actually raped Venice Parker in that murder, part in that ravine, walk free forever. They closed the case on an innocent man, so the guilty one never got looked for again. Venice Parker never got justice either, friend. Her family never got the truth, and her son grew up grieving behind a lie. Two families, both of them robbed by the same lying liars. And after Edward Lee Smith finished speaking, Joseph Walker walked across the room and wrapped his arms around him and told him, "I'm so sorry for your loss." Two men, two sons, both lost a parent to the very same lies 70 years ago, holding each other in a hearing room. And when the commissioners voted, all five of them unanimously declared Tommy Lee Walker innocent of the rape and murder of Venice Lorraine Parker. And in that resolution, they put his name in the same breath as Galileo, as Alan Turing, people their own institutions destroyed, then too late called innocent. So let me tell you who Tommy Lee Walker really was, friend. Not the case number, the man, born December 21st, 1934 in Forney, Texas. Youngest of five, a quiet boy, a lover of music, a doo-wop singer with the Street Lamp Quartet, a daddy, Mary Louise's love, murdered by the state of Texas on May  12th, 1956 for something he didn't do and declared innocent by Dallas County on January 21st, 2026, 70 years to the month after they killed him. So before I let you go, friend, I got to tell you what happened to the men who did this, because 3 men in particular built the lie that killed Tommy Walker, and I want you to know how each of them ended up, okay? So I'm going to start with the one who lit the match. That's the patrol officer, J.W. Gallagher, okay? He's the one that pulled up to Love Field and leaned in that car where Venice was bleeding out and then later told the courtroom that she made a full statement with a race identification, a location, and everything else, okay? What happened to him? What happened to Gallagher after that? Friend, nothing. Not one thing. He told the lie that started it all, and then he just faded out of history. No fame, no reckoning, no answering for it. Just a cop who said a dying woman talked and walked away clean, okay? Now, the second man, Captain J. Will Fritz, the Klansman, the one who ran interrogations and walked out with the confession, you want to know what happened to Fritz Farron? He became a legend. He built the homicide bureau with his own 2 hands, and they bragged that in a 10-year stretch, his division cleared 98% of its murders in Dallas by arrest. I bet they fucking did. Because 98% is crazy now that we know how he was clearing them, okay? Got scared people and made up confessions. And you tell me how many more Tommies are buried under that number. They called him the best interrogator in the state. And 9 years after he broke Tommy Lee Walker, Fritz became famous because in Dallas 1963, that's when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and it was Captain Fritz who led the investigation, and Captain Fritz who sat across from Lee Harvey Oswald and interrogated him. And here's the part that's going to get you, friend. The great interrogator could not get a confession out of Oswald, couldn't crack him. But a terrified black 19-year-old with a brand new baby at home, oh, he broke that boy in that back room in no time flat. And that is so sad. Okay. Now, Fritz stayed on the force for 49 years, friend, retired at 74, died in 1984, remembered to this very day as a Dallas legend. And the third man, friend, the big one, okay, Henry Wade. I told you, the longest serving DA in Texas history, nearly 4 decades in that office. I saved him for last because he built himself a legend too. The highest felony conviction rate in the entire country, 92%. They called him the chief in 1995. While the man was still living, Dallas County put his name on a building, the Henry Wade Juvenile Justice Center, a jail for children. And in 2000, they named him one of 100 most influential lawyers of the 18th century. And then he just died in his own bed in 2001 at 86 years old. I guess honored, huh? But here is what they were finding out while they carved his name in stone. Dallas County leads this whole nation in overturned wrongful convictions, the whole country, friend, because of him. And as of right now, per the National Registry of Exonerations, Tommy Lee Walker is at least the 35th person convicted under Henry Wade's office to be cleared. 35, friend, that we know of. And his name is still on a children's jail right now in 2026. And that jail has its own reports of abuse inside of it. And nobody gonna speak on that. So let me lay it out plain for you, friend. 3 men built a lie. Gallagher told it. Fritz beat it into a confession. I can't say beat it. Fritz coerced it into a confession. Wade carried it to the chair, and not a single one of them ever spent a day answering for Tommy Lee Walker. Tommy got 21 years and then the electric chair. They got careers, building, old age, and 2 of them got a place in the history books as heroes. Make it make sense. So, friend, that's the story I've been sitting with, and here is where it leaves me. Dallas County did the right thing in January. They said his name, they said innocent out loud and on the record forever, and that matters. It matters to Edward, it matters to the whole community in Dallas that knew the truth the entire time and had to carry it in silence for 70 years. But I need you to hear me clear. A resolution is a piece of paper, and a piece of paper can clear a man's name, but it cannot give him his life back. Tommy Lee Walker is not coming home, friend. They can't unkill him. He didn't get to have the wedding that he was finna have with Mary Louise. He didn't get to raise Edward. He didn't get to be an old man somewhere with grandbabies climbing all up on him, telling him about his good old doo-wop days with the Street Lamp Quartet. They took all of that, and no vote, no paper, no apology in 2026 is going to give a single day of that back. But what it gives us is the truth, finally on record, that a scared 19-year-old with a brand new baby at home and a room full of people swearing that he was across town and innocent when this lady was raped and murdered, he told them twice that he had been tricked out of his life and he was right the entire time. Now, friend, remember earlier when I told you Henry Wade was on some nefarious shit and we circle back? Here we go. Henry Wade is the very Wade in Roe versus Wade. That's probably why this entire time I kept saying it. It was sounding familiar to you. The most famous case about a woman's right to own her own body this country has ever had to have, okay? And here we stand in 2022. The Supreme Court overturned it, all right? Now, friend, I need you to hear me because people act like this case was way back when. Like Henry Wade and the Will Fritzes all died off and now we just good, okay? They didn't. Them men age out, but the system they built is still standing, still staffed by people who think just like they did. And sometimes by their own children and grandchildren sitting in the same exact seats. DA, judge, sheriff. It didn't leave, it just changed clothes, okay? And the only way you change who's holding that power is you get them out. These motherfuckers gotta go, friend, plain as it is, okay? And here's what nobody tells you. Them seats, DA, judge, sheriff, the exact seats Wade and Fritz sat in, you gotta vote for those. And most of them gets decided in the primaries, where damn near nobody shows up. But this year we're gonna show up, right? So the handful of people who do show up pick who's in that power over your body, over your freedom, over when some other 19-year-old gets railroaded. So this is me asking you, friend, to go find out when your primary is. Get registered and show up. I'm going to post it on my Instagram how to get registered and when your primary dates are. So I need you to go and check those registrations. Make sure you're registered to vote. Check your dates, all of it, because being nosy isn't about just reading them case files, friend. Sometimes it's really about reading what's on that ballot, okay? So, friend, that's that. That's Tommy Walker. That's what I have for you tonight. Now, listen, this here is a true crime show at the Spine, but you already know I'm nosy, so we don't always stay there. Episode 2, it's already up right now today, and it's a different kind of nosy. We're going from a 1954 courtroom to a question I've been dying to ask, okay? Is she a doctor or not? Asking for the culture, okay? Same side eye, whole different subject. Go tap in on the next one. But before you go anywhere, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, we always got to be out here side eyeing responsibly, okay? And listen, pull up on me. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at The Side Eye Files, on YouTube at The Side Eye Files Podcast. Tap in. And if you got receipts or something that you are side eyeing, send me an email, thesideeyefiles@gmail.com, because you already know I'm nosy too and I want to take a look. All right, friends, stay nosy. I'm finna head out. I will see you in the next episode. That's crazy. All right, bye.